My name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 27 years old. 10 years ago, my brother stole $500,000 from me and made it look like I did it. My mother believed him. She threw me out at 17 into a freezing Oregon winter. I slept in my car. I had no one. But last month, a forensic handwriting expert proved what I'd been saying for a decade. That signature wasn't mine. It was forged. By a man. My brother is a man. And when my mother finally saw the proof, she collapsed. And this story isn't for everyone. It's only for the 9%. Because research shows 91% of people want change, but only 9% actually take action. It's not that they don't know what to do. They just choose comfort over growth. If you're part of the 9% who act, prove it simply. Like, subscribe, and comment. I take action. That 9% always goes the farthest in life. And I bet you're one of them. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. The fall of 2015, when everything I knew shattered. My name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 27 years old. You stole from your grandfather while he was dying, my mother said, standing in the doorway of the house I grew up in. Behind her, my brother Ryan was packing up Grandpa's study, the room where I'd spent 3 years reading to him, holding his hand, watching him fade. I was 17. It was October 3rd, 2015. I had $600 in a bank account I couldn't access, a 1998 Toyota Camry that needed new brakes, and absolutely no one who believed me. I didn't steal anything, but my brother did. And it would take 10 years, a law degree, and one forensic handwriting analyst to prove it. Let me take you back to the fall of 2015, back to the moment everything I knew shattered. My grandfather, William Sullivan, was a carpenter. He built houses with his hands for 40 years in Portland, Oregon. When arthritis took his grip and then dementia took his mind, I became his companion. I was 14 when it started. Every day after school, I'd sit in his study and read to him. Hemingway, Steinbeck, sometimes just the newspaper. He'd listen, eyes closed, occasionally squeezing my hand to let me know he was still there. My mother, Margaret, was grateful at first. She'd been widowed young, raising 2 kids on a teacher's salary. Ryan, 6 years older than me, was already out of the house, bouncing between jobs and what Mom called finding himself. I was the one who stayed, the one who showed up. When Grandpa died that September, I was 17 and starting my senior year of high school. The funeral was small, 20 people maybe. I remember Ryan showed up late, slipping into the back row during the eulogy. He hadn't visited Grandpa once in the final year. Not once. 2 weeks later, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table. Mr. Morrison, Grandpa's estate attorney, had just left. Her eyes were red, but there was something else there too, something I couldn't quite read. Your grandfather left you a trust fund, she said quietly. I stared at her. What? $500,000. He wanted you to have it for college. He put it in a trust that transfers to you at 18, but... She hesitated. The bank needs you to sign some paperwork. $500,000. I couldn't even conceptualize that amount. I'd been working weekends at a coffee shop for $9 an hour. I'd been searching for scholarships, filling out financial aid forms, wondering how I'd afford community college. Why me? I asked. Mom's face did something complicated. Because you were there. You took care of him. What she didn't say, but I heard anyway. Ryan wasn't there. Ryan never showed up. The money sat in the trust account for 3 weeks. I didn't touch it. I couldn't yet. I wasn't 18 until December. But just knowing it existed felt like a door opening, a future I could actually plan for. Then, on October 3rd, a Thursday, my phone rang during lunch period. Miss Sullivan? The voice was professional, clipped. This is David Park from First National Bank. We need you to come in immediately. There's been an issue with your account. Issue. That was the word he used. I drove to the bank after school, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Mr. Park, a man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses, led me to a small office. He placed a stack of documents in front of me. These are withdrawal forms from your trust account, he said. Signed 3 days ago. The entire balance was transferred out. I looked at the papers. My name, printed at the top, and below it, a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. I didn't sign this, I said. I've never seen this before. Mr. Park's expression didn't change. Miss Sullivan, this is a serious matter. The trust specifically prohibited early withdrawal except under certain conditions. Someone forged your signature, or... He paused. You withdrew the money and are now claiming otherwise. I didn't, I said, my voice rising. I was at school 3 days ago. I can prove it. I didn't sign anything. He leaned back in his chair. We'll need to investigate. But I have to tell you, the signature matches samples we have on file. And the withdrawal was made in person at this branch. The room tilted. In person? Someone presented identification with your name and date of birth. I drove home in a daze. The money was gone. All of it. And according to the bank, I was the one who took it. When I pulled into the driveway, Ryan's truck was parked out front. He hadn't been home in months. I walked inside. Mom was in the kitchen. Ryan was sitting at the table, and when he saw me, his face crumpled. Emma, he said, his voice breaking. We need to talk. Ryan looked at Mom, then at me. His eyes were rimmed red, like he'd been crying. I tried to help you, he said. I really did. But I can't cover for you anymore. I set my backpack down slowly. What are you talking about? He rubbed his face with both hands. The gambling, Emma. I know you've been struggling. I found the betting slips in your room last month when I was visiting. I didn't want to tell Mom because I thought you'd stop. But now this... the trust fund. Gambling? The word came out like a foreign language. Ryan, I don't gamble. I've never... Don't lie to me. His voice cracked. I've been trying to protect you. I even lent you money last year when you said you needed it for books. But you never paid me back. And now Grandpa's money is gone and I don't know what to tell Mom. I looked at my mother. She was standing by the sink, dish towel twisted between her hands, her face pale. Mom, I said, I don't know what he's talking about. I never borrowed money from Ryan. I've never placed a bet in my life. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. The bank said someone used your identification. It wasn't me. Ryan stood up abruptly. Then who was it, Em? Who else had access to your information? Your social security number? Your ID? He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. Explain this. It was a photo of my laptop screen, browser history, gambling websites, sports betting, online casinos, sites I'd never heard of, let alone visited. I didn't... My throat closed. That's not my history. I don't know how that got there. It's your laptop, Ryan said quietly. Your password. I checked when you weren't home because I was worried about you. The room spun. Someone had been in my room, on my computer, planting evidence. Ryan, I said, and I heard the desperation in my own voice. Please. You know me. I wouldn't do this. But even as I said it, I saw his face. The concern, the pity, the certainty. He'd already decided what was true. My mother spoke, and her voice was so cold it didn't sound like hers at all. The bank is investigating. They said if the money isn't returned, they'll press charges. You're 17, Emma. You'd be tried as an adult. I didn't take it. Then where is it? Margaret's voice rose for the first time. Where is $500,000? I didn't have an answer. I had nothing. No proof, no explanation, just my word against a paper trail that pointed straight at me. That night, I wrote her a letter. 2 pages, front and back, handwritten at my desk while tears blurred the ink. I explained everything I could think of. The timeline. I was at school when the withdrawal happened. My friends could confirm it. I'd never been to that bank branch in person. I didn't have a gambling problem. I didn't even know how to place a bet. I loved Grandpa. I would never dishonor his memory like this. I ended with 5 words. Please, Mom. Believe me. I left the letter on the kitchen table before she woke up. I thought if she could read it without Ryan there, without the pressure, she might hear me. When I came downstairs that morning, the letter was gone. I found it an hour later in the fireplace, burned, the corners still glowing orange. Mom was standing there, poker in hand. "Pack your things," she said without looking at me. "I want you out by tonight." "Mom, you stole from your grandfather while he was dying." Her voice shook. "You stole from him and now you're lying to my face. I worked 2 jobs to keep this family together after your father died. I sacrificed everything. And you." She finally looked at me. "You are not my daughter. Not anymore." Ryan stood in the hallway, silent, watching. Not a single word in my defense. I packed 1 bag. Clothes. My laptop. The one that had been used against me. My phone charger. A photo of Grandpa and me from when I was 14. Everything I owned fit into a duffel bag and a backpack. The Camry's engine coughed when I turned the key. The brakes squealed as I pulled out of the driveway. It was October, and the Oregon rain had started. Cold, relentless, turning the streets dark and slick. I drove away from the only home I'd ever known. I had nowhere to go, and no one to call. In the rearview mirror, I saw the porch light flick off. The first night, I parked behind a 24-hour grocery store on Southeast Division Street. I reclined the driver's seat as far as it would go, pulled my jacket over my chest, and stared at the ceiling fabric peeling away from the frame. I didn't sleep. Not for 1 minute. Every sound, shopping carts rattling, car doors slamming, voices passing by, sent my heart racing. I kept thinking someone would knock on the window. Police, security, someone who'd tell me I couldn't be there. No one came. By morning, I had $11 in my wallet and a quarter tank of gas. I couldn't go back to school. How could I sit in AP Literature while my entire life was imploding? I called the attendance office from a payphone and said I had the flu. It bought me 3 days. On day 2, I found the Bridgeview homeless shelter on Southeast 3rd Avenue. The woman at the intake desk didn't ask many questions. She just handed me a clipboard, pointed to a cot in a room with 30 others, and said dinner was at 6. I stayed there for 3 weeks. The shelter had rules. Out by 7 in the morning, back by 5 in the evening. No drugs, no alcohol, no violence. Everyone got a locker, a thin blanket, and 1 meal a day. The showers were communal, and the water only stayed hot for about 90 seconds. I learned things fast. Which corners of the room were safest, how to sleep with your shoes on so no one took them, how to make a single granola bar last an entire day. I also learned that nobody asks how you ended up there, because everyone has a story, and most of them are worse than yours. In week 4, a friend from high school, Jenna Park, saw me outside a library. I'd been using the computers to search for jobs. She took 1 look at me, at the duffel bag, and she knew. "Come stay with us," she said. "My mom won't mind." She was wrong. Her mom minded. I lasted 2 months on their couch before I overheard the argument. "She's not our responsibility, Jenna. We have our own bills." I left before they had to ask. That's when I started sleeping in the Camry again. I parked in different lots every night. The library, a church, behind a 24-hour diner on East Burnside. I'd run the engine for 10 minutes when it got too cold, just enough to take the edge off, then shut it down to save gas. November turned to December. I turned 18 in the front seat of that car with a cupcake I'd bought myself from a convenience store. I sang happy birthday in a whisper so no one would hear. The diner where I parked became a lifeline. I'd go inside around 6 in the morning, buy a coffee I couldn't afford, and sit in a corner booth pretending to read while I charged my phone. That's where I met Mrs. Chen. She was the day manager. 60-something, gray hair in a tight bun, and a voice that could cut through the breakfast rush like a knife. She'd seen me there every morning for 2 weeks. One day, she slid into the booth across from me. "You're living in that car, aren't you?" she said. Not unkind, just factual. I didn't answer. "You working?" I shook my head. She stood up, pulled an apron from under the counter, and tossed it at me. "You start Monday. 6 in the morning. Minimum wage. You show up on time. You work hard. We'll see where it goes." I stared at the apron. It smelled like coffee and grease and possibility. "Why?" I asked. Mrs. Chen looked at me for a long moment. "Because 20 years ago, someone gave me a chance. I'm just passing it on." I worked 40 hours a week at that diner. I rented a basement room from Mrs. Chen for $200 a month. She knocked it down from $350 because she knew what I could afford. It was small, damp. The ceiling was low, and the one window looked out at a brick wall. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever lived. At night, I studied for my GED at a folding table under a single light bulb. I passed the test in March, 6 months after my mother threw me out. Mrs. Chen framed the certificate and hung it behind the diner counter. "You're smart," she said, refilling someone's coffee without looking at me. "Why aren't you in college?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But the question planted a seed. I applied to Portland Community College that spring. 2-year program. I could work full-time and take classes at night. Mrs. Chen adjusted my shifts without me even asking. The first day of classes, I sat in the back of Introduction to Business Law and realized something. I wasn't the oldest person in the room. I wasn't the only one working 2 jobs. Half the class looked as tired as I felt. I wasn't alone anymore. I kept my head down and my grades up. 3.7 GPA. I made the dean's list both years. When I graduated with my associate degree in spring of 2018, Mrs. Chen closed the diner early and threw me a party. 12 people came. None of them were related to me by blood. All of them mattered more than blood ever had. That summer, I applied for paralegal positions. 23 applications, 18 rejections, 4 interviews, 1 offer. Hartley and Associates was a small firm in Northwest Portland. 3 attorneys, 2 paralegals, 1 receptionist. They specialized in estate planning, wills, trusts, probate. I didn't know it then, but that job would change everything. My supervising attorney, Mr. James Hartley, was in his 60s. Patient. Meticulous. He had a habit of reading every document twice, sometimes 3 times. He taught me to do the same. "Details matter in this work, Emma," he'd say, sliding a contract across my desk with a red pen. "One misplaced comma can change the meaning of an entire inheritance." I learned fast. How to draft affidavits, how to file probate petitions, how to sit across from grieving families and help them navigate the worst moments of their lives with paperwork and procedure. I was good at it. Better than good. After a year, Mr. Hartley called me into his office. He closed the door and sat down across from me, which he never did. "You're wasting your talent here," he said. I blinked. "I'm sorry? You should be in law school, not supporting lawyers. Being one." I almost laughed. "I can't afford law school. Night program. Keep working during the day. It'll take 4 years instead of 3, but you'll graduate without debt." He slid a brochure across the desk. "Lewis and Clark Law School. I'll write you a recommendation. You'll get in." He was right. I started law school in fall of 2019. I was 21 years old. I worked at the firm from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, then drove to campus for classes from 6 until 10 at night. I studied on weekends. I studied on holidays. I studied in the diner during my lunch breaks while Mrs. Chen slipped me free coffee and told me I was going to burn out. I didn't burn out. I was fueled by something stronger than exhaustion. Every time I wanted to quit, and there were many times, I thought about that letter burning in the fireplace. I thought about my mother's face when she told me I wasn't her daughter. I thought about Ryan sitting silent in the hallway, and I kept going. In May of 2022, I passed the Oregon bar exam on my first attempt. I was 24 years old. I'd been on my own for 7 years. Mr. Hartley promoted me to associate attorney. But 6 months later, I got a call from a firm in Boston, Whitman and Reed. They specialized in estate litigation, and they'd seen my work on a contested probate case. They wanted me. The offer was more money than I'd ever imagined making. A chance to start over somewhere new, somewhere that didn't have memories on every corner. I took it. I packed the Camry one last time. Mrs. Chen stood in the driveway of her house and hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. "You did it," she whispered. "You did it all by yourself." I wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that she'd saved me, that I wouldn't be here without her. But my throat was too tight to speak. I arrived in Boston in January of 2023. I was 27 years old. I had a law degree, a career, and an apartment with windows that actually let in light. I'd stopped thinking about my mother's voice every day. I'd stopped checking my phone to see if she'd called. I'd stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. I chose estate law for one reason, so no one else's family would be torn apart the way mine was, so no one else would lose what I lost. But in spring of 2025, a case landed on my desk that brought it all back. Every painful memory, every unanswered question, and the evidence I'd been too young to find 10 years ago. Her name was Dorothy Brennan, 82 years old. She sat across from me in the conference room with her hands folded in her lap, shaking slightly. "My son took everything," she said quietly, "and everyone believes him." I'd heard variations of this story dozens of times. Adult children stealing from aging parents, forged signatures, manipulated accounts. It happened more often than people wanted to admit. But something about the way she said it, the exact phrasing, the tremor in her voice, made my chest tighten. "Tell me what happened," I said. Her son, Michael, had power of attorney. He'd used it to transfer $200,000 from her savings account into his own name. When the bank questioned it, he told them Dorothy had early dementia and had given him permission. He'd even produced a notarized document with her signature authorizing the transfer. "But I never signed that paper," Dorothy said, tears streaming down her face. "I know my own signature. That wasn't it." I looked at the document she'd brought. The signature was close, very close, but something about the loops, the pressure, the spacing, it didn't feel right. "Mrs. Brennan," I said carefully, "have you told anyone else it's not your signature?" "My daughter, the police, the bank." They all looked at me the same way. Her voice cracked. Like I was confused. Like I didn't know my own name. I knew that look. I'd seen it on my mother's face 10 years ago. "I believe you," I said. She stared at me. "You do?" "Yes. And I think we can prove it." I hired a forensic handwriting expert, Dr. Patricia Voss. She'd testified in over 200 cases. I sent her Dorothy's document along with verified samples of Dorothy's real signature from bank records, old checks, medical forms spanning 30 years. The analysis took 2 weeks. When the report came back, I read it 3 times. The signature on the authorization document was not written by Dorothy Brennan, Dr. Voss concluded. The forger was likely male, approximately 40 to 50 years old, right-handed, attempting to mimic a female's handwriting. The pressure points, the angle of the pen strokes, and the natural flow all indicate a different writer. Michael was right-handed, 47 years old. We went to court, Dr. Voss testified. The judge ruled in Dorothy's favor. Michael was ordered to return the money and was charged with financial elder abuse. After the verdict, Dorothy hugged me in the courthouse hallway. She was crying. So was her daughter. "Thank you," Dorothy whispered. "Thank you for believing me when no one else would." I walked back to my office alone. I sat at my desk and stared at Dr. Voss's report, still open on my computer screen. The signature was forged. The forger was male, right-handed. Ryan was right-handed. The thought hit me like cold water. I'd kept everything from 2015. Every document. Every letter. I'd told myself it was in case I ever needed to prove what happened. But the truth was, I couldn't let it go. I went home that night and pulled a cardboard box from the back of my closet. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside, the bank withdrawal forms with my signature. Copies of my real signatures from high school transcripts, old permission slips, college applications. The letter I'd tried to give my mother, saved as a draft on my old laptop. I spread them out on my kitchen table under the light. If we could prove Dorothy's signature was forged, what about mine? I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking. I made a call I'd been too afraid to make for 10 years. Dr. Voss answered on the third ring. "Dr. Voss, this is Emma Sullivan. I represented Dorothy Brennan." "Of course, what can I do for you?" I took a breath. "I need to hire you. Privately. For a personal matter." There was a pause. "Go on. 10 years ago, someone forged my signature on a bank withdrawal. I was 17. I was accused of stealing $500,000 from a trust fund my grandfather left me. I didn't do it. But I was never able to prove it." My voice steadied. "I'd like to prove it now." She didn't ask why I'd waited 10 years. She didn't question whether I was telling the truth. She just said, "Send me everything you have." I overnighted the documents. The withdrawal forms from First National Bank with the signature that was supposedly mine. My real signatures from 2015, permission slips I'd signed for school field trips, a work permit application, college entrance essays with my handwritten signature at the bottom, samples spanning from age 14 to 17. Then I waited. 2 weeks felt like 2 years. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Subject line: analysis complete. I stared at it for a full minute before I could make myself click. Dr. Voss's report was 12 pages long, technical, detailed, full of terms like baseline characteristics, pen pressure differential, and stroke hesitation patterns. But the conclusion was 3 sentences, clear as daylight. The signature on the withdrawal authorization was not written by Emma Sullivan. The writing exhibits characteristics consistent with a male hand, aged 20 to 35, right-handed, deliberately slowing stroke speed to mimic female handwriting. Confidence level, 97%. I read it again, then again. 97%. Not written by Emma Sullivan. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the phone down. For 10 years I'd known I was innocent, but knowing and proving are 2 different countries. I'd lived in the first one alone, with nothing but my own certainty to keep me warm. Now I had proof. I called Dr. Voss back immediately. "I need you to testify if this goes to court," I said. "I will. But Emma..." She hesitated. "This was 10 years ago. Statute of limitations on fraud in Oregon is 6 years. You can't prosecute." "I know. This isn't about prosecution." "Then what is it about?" I looked at the report on my screen. The truth. The next call was harder. I found the number online. Morrison and Associates. Estate planning. Mr. Morrison had retired, but the firm still existed. When I called, the receptionist transferred me to a junior partner who'd taken over his cases. "I'm trying to reach Mr. Harold Morrison," I said. "He handled my grandfather's estate in 2015. William Sullivan." "Mr. Morrison is retired, but I can take a message. Please tell him Emma Sullivan called. Tell him—" I paused. "Tell him I found proof." He called me back within an hour. "Emma." His voice was older, softer than I remembered. "I never forgot your case. You were Grandpa's lawyer. You were there the day my mother—" I couldn't finish. "I was there," he said quietly. "I saw the letter you tried to give her. I saw her burn it." My throat closed. "You saw that?" "I did. And Emma—" "I kept a copy." The world stopped. "What?" "Before the meeting, you'd given me a copy to review. You wanted to make sure you'd explained everything correctly. You were 17, and you were terrified, and you wanted to get it right." His voice cracked. "I kept that copy. I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. I knew you were telling the truth. But I was just the lawyer. I couldn't make your mother listen. Do you still have it?" "I do. I can scan it and send it to you tonight." That evening, the email arrived. Attached was a PDF, 2 pages. My handwriting at 17, looping and uncertain but unmistakably mine. "Dear Mom, I know you don't believe me. I know Ryan showed you things that make it look like I did something terrible. But Mom, I promise you, I didn't take Grandpa's money. I didn't gamble. I didn't lie to you. I was at school when the bank says someone withdrew the money. You can call the attendance office. You can ask my teachers. I was in 3rd period English when it happened. I don't know how someone got my information. I don't know how they forged my signature. But it wasn't me. Please, Mom, believe me. I loved Grandpa. He was the only person who made me feel like I mattered. I would never dishonor him like this. I'm your daughter. I'm telling you the truth. Please." Emma, I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and cried for the first time in years. Not because I was sad, because I finally had everything I needed. The forensic report. The letter. 10 years of distance and a law degree that taught me exactly how to use them. I had the proof. But the question that kept me awake that night wasn't whether I could prove it. It was whether I should. I typed my mother's name into Google for the first time in 10 years. Margaret Sullivan, Portland, Oregon. The results were sparse. An old Facebook profile, last updated in 2021. A few tagged photos from Ryan's page, though his account had been deactivated. And then, buried on page 3, an article from the Portland Tribune. Local teacher retires after dementia diagnosis. The photo showed my mother at a retirement party. She looked smaller than I remembered. Grayer. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The article was from 2022. 3 years ago. I found her next in a different kind of listing. Greenwood Memory Care, a nursing facility in Southeast Portland specializing in Alzheimer's and dementia patients. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I could call. I could drive there tomorrow. I could walk into her room with the forensic report and the letter and say, Here's the proof you needed 10 years ago." But what would that accomplish? I called the facility instead. "I'm inquiring about a resident," I said. "Margaret Sullivan. I'm a family member." The nurse's voice was kind. "Are you her daughter?" Something in my chest cracked. "Yes. She's in our memory care wing. Early onset dementia, progressed to moderate stage. She has good days and bad days." A pause. "She asks for someone named Emma sometimes. Is that you?" I couldn't speak. "Ma'am?" "Yes," I whispered. "That's me. You should know, on her bad days, she doesn't recognize anyone, but on her good days, she remembers more." If you're planning to visit, mornings are usually better. I hung up and sat on my couch for a long time. My mother had dementia. She was asking for me. After 10 years of silence, some part of her, the part that still remembered, wanted me. But did I want vindication from someone who might not even understand what she'd done? I thought about Dorothy Brennan in the courthouse, crying because someone finally believed her. I thought about the moment Dr. Voss's report arrived and how it felt to see the words not written by Emma Sullivan. Validation mattered. Truth mattered. But revenge? That was something else entirely. If I walked into that nursing home and confronted my mother with evidence of her mistake, what would I get? An apology she might not remember giving? A breakdown that would hurt her more than it would heal me? Or would I get something simpler? The chance to say, I told you the truth, and here's the proof. Not for her. For me. I opened my laptop and booked a flight to Portland. Not because I wanted to hurt her, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because after 10 years I needed her to know, even if just for one moment, even if she forgot it an hour later, that I had been telling the truth all along. I packed the forensic report. I packed the letter. I packed a bag for 2 nights. And the next morning, I drove to the airport. I was going back to the city I'd fled as a homeless teenager. But this time, I wasn't running. I was coming back as the woman I'd become. Greenwood Memory Care sat at the end of a quiet street in southeast Portland, a low brick building surrounded by maple trees. The lobby smelled like disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. A tired-looking receptionist checked my ID and handed me a visitor's badge. "Margaret Sullivan, room 214, she said. "Second floor. The nurse will meet you up there." I took the elevator. My hands were sweating. I'd rehearsed what I'd say 100 times on the plane, but now, standing in this hallway with its fluorescent lights and handrails bolted to the walls, every word vanished. The nurse from the phone met me outside room 214. She was younger than I'd imagined. Maybe 30. Kind eyes. "You're Emma?" I nodded. "She's having a good morning," the nurse said softly. "But I need to prepare you. She might not recognize you right away. And if she gets agitated, I'll need to ask you to leave. Okay?" "Okay." She opened the door. The room was small. A single bed. A chair by the window. A dresser with a TV that wasn't on. And photographs. Dozens of them, taped to the walls, covering every surface. Ryan. Ryan at graduation. Ryan holding a fish on some camping trip. Ryan with his arm around Mom at a family barbecue I didn't remember. Not a single photo of me. My mother sat in the chair by the window, staring out at the parking lot. She looked so much smaller than I remembered. Her hair was completely gray now, cut short. Her hands, folded in her lap, looked fragile, breakable. "Margaret," the nurse said gently, "you have a visitor." My mother turned slowly. Her eyes found mine. For a moment there was nothing. Just a blank, confused stare. Then something shifted. Recognition. Not full. Not clear. But something. "You," she said. Her voice was thin, uncertain. "You're that girl." I stepped closer. My throat was so tight I could barely speak. "I'm Emma," I said quietly. "Your daughter." Her face crumpled. Confusion. Fear. She shook her head. "No. No. My daughter." She looked at the nurse, panicked. "My daughter stole from her grandfather. She's not. You can't be." The nurse touched her shoulder. "It's okay, Margaret. Just listen." I sat down in the chair across from her. Slowly, I kept my hands visible, non-threatening, the way you'd approach a frightened animal. "Mom," I said. The word felt strange in my mouth after 10 years. "I know you don't remember me. I know what you were told about me, but I need you to listen. Just for a few minutes. Can you do that?" She stared at me. Her eyes were watery, scared. "Who are you?" she whispered. I'm your daughter. My name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 27 years old. I was born on December 15th, 1997. You used to make me blueberry pancakes on Saturday mornings. You taught me how to ride a bike in the driveway. You... Stop. Her voice cracked. Stop. Please. I don't... I reached into my bag and pulled out 2 documents. I placed them gently on the small table beside her chair. I'm not here to hurt you, I said. I'm here to show you something. Something you didn't see 10 years ago. She looked at the papers like they might bite her. What is it? The truth, I said. I unfolded the first document, the forensic report. I turned it so she could see. This is an analysis of the signature on the bank withdrawal from Grandpa's trust fund, the one that was supposed to be mine. I pointed to the conclusion, the words highlighted in yellow. It says the signature wasn't written by me. It was forged. By someone male. Right-handed. Her hand started shaking. I don't understand. Ryan is right-handed, I said quietly. She looked up at me. Her face was pale. No. No. Ryan wouldn't... Mom. My voice broke. Please. Just read it. I unfolded the second document. The letter. My handwriting from 10 years ago. Looping and desperate. You burned this, I said. You burned it without reading it. But Grandpa's lawyer kept a copy. He kept it because he believed me. I placed it on her lap. Just read it, I whispered. One more time. Please. She looked down at the letter, her hands trembling as she picked it up. Margaret read slowly. Her lips moved with the words. When she reached the end, please. Emma. Her hand started shaking so hard the paper rattled. She looked up at me. And for the first time in 10 years, I saw my mother's eyes. Not the fog. Not the confusion. Her. Oh God, she whispered. Oh my God. The nurse stepped forward, but I held up a hand. Wait. Mom? You were at school. Her voice was clearer now, stronger. You said you were at school and I didn't check. I didn't call. I just believed. You believed Ryan. Her face crumpled. He came to me crying. He said he'd found things in your room. He showed me betting websites. He showed me. He planted them. I didn't know. Your father had just died. Then Dad. I was drowning and Ryan said he'd help. When he told me you were in trouble, I just... She couldn't finish. I sat very still. You burned my letter. I was angry. I thought you were lying. Her breath hitched. Oh God, Emma. You were 17. You were my baby, and I threw you out, and I never... She looked up at me, clarity devastating in her eyes. Where did you go? A homeless shelter, I said quietly. For 3 weeks. Then I slept in my car. No. No, Emma. I finished high school. I put myself through college and law school. I became an attorney. My voice didn't waver. I did all of it without you. She made a sound like something inside her had broken. I'm so sorry. Where's Ryan? I need to talk to Ryan. Ryan's gone, Mom. She blinked. What? He disappeared 2 years ago. Gambling debts. No one's seen him. The look on her face. Shock, then understanding. The pattern she should have seen a decade ago finally clicking. He stole from me before, she whispered. When he was younger. Small things. I made excuses. And when he said it was you, I wanted to believe him. Because if it was you, that meant it wasn't him. That meant I hadn't failed. But you did fail, I said. She looked at me, tears streaming. You failed me. Not because you believed him at first, but because you wouldn't try to listen. You burned my letter without reading it. You threw me out at 17 and never called. Not once. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I don't know how to make this right. You can't, I said simply. It's too late. The words hung in the air. True. Final. Margaret's breathing became rapid, shallow. She gripped the chair arms. I threw you out. You were a child. What have I done? What have I... The nurse moved quickly. Margaret, breathe. Deep breaths. But my mother wasn't listening. She was looking past me at something only she could see. Her eyes wild. Emma, she called out. Not to me. To some memory. Emma, please. I'm sorry. Please come home. I'm right here, I said. But she didn't hear me. She was somewhere else now. Somewhere 10 years ago. The nurse pressed a call button. I need to give her something. You need to leave. Now. Mom. If you stay, she'll only get worse. I stood. My legs felt weak. Margaret was still calling for me, sobbing, reaching for someone who wasn't there. I backed toward the door. Another nurse rushed in with a syringe. The last thing I saw was my mother, small and broken in that chair, crying for a daughter she'd lost, a daughter standing 3 feet away. But she couldn't see me anymore. I walked to the elevator, made it to my rental car, and then I sat behind the wheel and cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because she'd finally believed me, but because it didn't matter. The vindication I'd imagined felt nothing like this. It felt like a funeral. I checked into a hotel near the airport. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed the moment my mother's eyes cleared, the moment she finally understood. You were 17. You were my baby. For 10 years, I'd imagined vindication would feel like relief, maybe even joy. I'd been wrong. It felt like watching someone drown from the shore, close enough to see, too late to save. The call came the next morning. Miss Sullivan, I wanted to update you on your mother. The nurse's voice was gentle. She had an episode after you left. We sedated her. But this morning, she doesn't remember your visit. I closed my eyes. She's been asking for Ryan all morning. I'm sorry. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. The truth had existed in my mother's mind for maybe 30 minutes. Long enough to break her. Then the fog rolled back in and erased it all. I opened my laptop and started typing. Dear Mom, by the time you read this, you probably won't remember I came to see you. I understand. It's not your fault. But I need to write this anyway. For me. I forgive you for not believing me 10 years ago. I understand you were grieving. I understand Ryan manipulated you. What I don't forgive is that you never tried. You burned my letter without reading it. You threw me out at 17 and never called. You chose comfort over truth. You chose the easy answer over your daughter. I needed you to fight for me, Mom. Just once. But you didn't. I survived because I had no choice. I rebuilt my life with help from people who owed me nothing. A diner manager who gave me a job. A lawyer who saw my potential. Friends who became family. I'm proud of who I became. I'm a good attorney. I help people who've been hurt the way I was. But I wish I didn't have to become that person alone. Yesterday, you had one clear moment. You understood. You apologized. Then you forgot. Maybe that's mercy. For you, anyway. I hope you're not suffering. I hope the dementia takes the pain and leaves the good memories. I hope you don't remember what you did to me. Because I'll remember enough for both of us. Emma. I printed the letter at the hotel business center. I drove back to Greenwood and left it at the reception desk. Give this to her if she has another good day, I said. The receptionist took it without questions. As I drove away, I watched the building disappear in my rearview mirror. I didn't feel closure. I didn't feel healed. I felt like I'd finally set down something I'd been carrying for 10 years. Not because it wasn't heavy anymore, but because I was tired of holding it. My flight back to Boston left at 3 in the afternoon. I didn't look back. 6 months later, the call came on a Tuesday. I was in my office reviewing a case when my phone buzzed with an Oregon number I didn't recognize. Miss Sullivan, this is Greenwood Memory Care. I'm calling about your mother, Margaret Sullivan. I set down my pen. She passed away last night, peacefully, in her sleep. I'm very sorry for your loss. I thanked her, hung up, stared at the wall for a long time. My mother was gone. I felt something, but I couldn't name it. Not grief, not relief. Something in between. Something without a word. The funeral was the following Saturday. Small service at a chapel in southeast Portland. I flew in Friday night and out Sunday morning. Minimal time, minimal exposure. I arrived early and sat in the back row. 18 people came. Former colleagues from the school where she'd taught. A few neighbors. The nurses from Greenwood. Ryan didn't show. No one expected him to. The pastor spoke about Margaret's dedication to teaching, her love of gardening, her kindness. He didn't mention her children. Maybe he didn't know she had any. I didn't speak. I didn't go to the reception afterward. I slipped out during the final prayer and drove across town. Rose City Cemetery was quiet that afternoon. The October air smelled like rain and fallen leaves. I found Grandpa's grave in the old section, beneath a maple tree that had grown taller since I'd last been here. William James Sullivan, 1940 to 2015, beloved father and grandfather. I knelt down and placed my hand on the cold stone. "Hi, Grandpa," I whispered. "I'm sorry it took me so long to come back." The wind moved through the leaves above me. I became a lawyer. Estate planning. I help people protect what they leave behind. I make sure families don't fall apart the way ours did. My voice cracked. I hope that would make you proud. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a gold pocket watch. Grandpa's. I'd found it 2 months ago in a safe deposit box I hadn't known existed. Mr. Morrison had called me. Grandpa had left instructions. The watch was for Emma only. Ryan had never known about it. I wound it carefully. It still worked. The ticking was steady, reliable. "I kept your trust, Grandpa," I said. "Not the money, but the trust in who I could become." I stayed there for a long time, long enough for the sun to dip behind the trees, long enough for the cemetery to empty out. When I finally stood, my knees ached from kneeling on the cold ground. I touched the headstone one more time. "Thank you," I whispered, "for believing I mattered." That night, I sat in my hotel room and looked at the pocket watch. I fastened the chain to my belt loop and slipped the watch into my pocket. It ticked against my hip. Steady. Present. A reminder that some people see you, even when others don't. The next morning, I flew back to Boston, back to my practice, back to my clients who needed someone to fight for them the way no one had fought for me. I didn't get my mother back, but I got something else. Proof that I was always enough. I'm telling you this story for a reason, not for sympathy, not for vindication, but because someone watching this needs to hear it. If you've ever been the one no one believed, I see you. If you've ever had your truth dismissed, your pain minimized, your voice ignored, I see you. You are not crazy. You are not too much. You are not the problem. My mother chose my brother's lies over my truth. That was her choice, not mine. My choice was what I built afterward. I don't tell you this story so you'll think reconciliation is impossible. Some families heal. Some apologies arrive in time. Some parents do the work. But mine didn't. And I had to learn that wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of her limitations. Vindication doesn't always look like tearful reunions and happily ever after. Sometimes it looks like a forensic report, a law degree, and the quiet knowledge that you were telling the truth all along. Sometimes it looks like building a life so full that the people who abandoned you become footnotes instead of chapters. I kept my grandfather's pocket watch, not as a trophy, as a reminder. Some people see you even when others don't. Some people believe you when it costs them nothing to walk away. Find those people. Hold on to them. They're your real family. And if you're still waiting for the person who hurt you to apologize, to understand, to finally see what they did, I want you to hear this. You don't need their validation to know your truth. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need their belief to know you were always worth believing. I was 17. I was homeless. I was terrified. And I survived. Not because someone saved me, though some people helped, but because I decided I was worth saving. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment about your own journey. Subscribe if you want more stories about resilience, not revenge. And remember, you are not defined by who abandoned you. You're defined by who you became after. My name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 27 years old, and I was always worth believing. So what did I learn over the last 10 years? I learned that the truth doesn't always set you free immediately, but it sets you free eventually. My mother collapsed when she saw the proof, but I didn't. Because I'd already done the work of survival, of rebuilding, of believing in myself when no one else did. Here's what I want you to take away from my story. First, your worth is not determined by who believes you. My mother didn't believe me. My brother betrayed me. The bank, the lawyer, even distant relatives, they all looked at me like I was a thief. But Diane Hollis, a stranger working the breakfast shift at a diner, believed me. She gave me a basement room and a chance. Sometimes your real family is the one you choose, not the one you're born into. Don't wait for the people who hurt you to validate your existence. Find the ones who see you. Second, justice doesn't always look like revenge. I didn't destroy my brother. I didn't ruin my mother. I didn't post the forensic report online or sell my story to the press. I simply showed up at a memory care facility with the truth in my hands, and that was enough. Real power isn't about making people suffer. It's about standing in your truth and letting it speak for itself. Third, survival is an action verb. I didn't survive by waiting for an apology. I survived by moving, by getting my GED in a public library, by working double shifts, by studying for the bar exam in a studio apartment in Boston, by showing up at that nursing home 10 years later with a law degree and a forensic report. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do next. And finally, closure is not always clean. My mother didn't remember our conversation the next day. She died 6 months later. I never got the apology I deserved. But I got something better. I got proof. I got peace. I got to stop carrying a lie that was never mine. You don't need their forgiveness. You need your own. My name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 27 years old. I survived homelessness, betrayal, and a decade of being called a liar. And I was always worth believing.